Hello, everyone. Welcome to Carried Away Travels. If this is your first time here, I'm Carrie, and I share helpful travel tips, itineraries, gear recommendations, and more so you can always have the perfect trip. This week, we're going to be diving into some of the best things that you can do in Iceland's capital city, Reykjavik. Now, I know from experience that trying to figure out what to do in Reykjavik can be really confusing. First of all, if you just don't know the culture, it's kind of hard to understand what a lot of things are, especially when on Google Maps, they're all in Icelandic. So you kind of have to figure out what's going on. The other thing is with a lot of foreign countries, especially Europe, they're very walkable, which is kind of a foreign concept for Americans. It's one of the things I love about visiting other countries, but it can also make it a little interesting to plan because it's kind of hard to gauge if something is actually in walking distance or if you need a car or you need to take the bus or something like that. So I put a lot of research into figuring out what we were going to do here. And honestly, it kind of changed as we were there. As we knocked things off our list and realized that, oh, it didn't take nearly as long to get here, we can fit this in, or we have more time than planned. There's so much more we can do. So I want to save you the stress of trying to plan that whole thing by yourself and just give you some realistic options for things that you can do. I have 10 that I want to share with you today, and I think you'll really enjoy them. Reykjavik is just such a fun city to explore. Like I mentioned, it's Iceland's largest city, it's the capital, and about 60% of Icelanders live in Reykjavik, which sounds like a ton, but it's really only like 100 something thousand people. Like there's not a lot of people in Iceland, but most of them live here. So it's really interesting to see what city life is like here compared to how it is in the smaller towns and villages you'll see around the country. But one of the things I loved about Reykjavik is how colorful it was. On the first day we got there, it was snowing, and so like the skies were gray, but the houses were all colorful. The streets were vibrant. It was just such a cool place to explore. And there's just so much you can do here, both for free and paid. And so I want to dive into 10 of the top things that you can do here and just let you know why they're worth your time as well as how much they cost. By the way, these are not in any particular order of best to worst. These are all fun, great things to do, so you can pick and choose which ones you think you want to prioritize. If you're looking for some great views, I highly recommend strolling along the Reykjavik Harbor. They have a really nice sidewalk boardwalk area. It's well paved, and you will get these absolutely beautiful views of the water and the mountains off in the distance. It is absolutely stunning, especially on a clear day. There are also several points of interest along this walk, like the famous Sun Voyager statue, the Harpa Concert Hall. There's even a cute little yellow lighthouse. So there's definitely things to do here besides just look at the view. So I highly recommend taking some time just to walk along that area and enjoy all that has to offer. That is free. That's a great thing to do after dinner or maybe on a sunny afternoon, whatever you prefer, wherever you have time to fit it in. Definitely make sure you do that. Secondly, take a visit to the Halmskirkja church. This is in the center of Reykjavik. It is Iceland's tallest and largest church, and it is such a cool building to explore. The outer facade is all gray, and honestly, it looks kind of bleak, but it's made to reflect Iceland's landscape. Honestly, the way it's formed kind of reminds me of the basalt columns you'll see around the country, like you would at Reynisfara Black Sand Beach. And it's just a very imposing building, but it's got some great things to see both inside and out. In the front, there's also a statue of the Viking Leif Erikson. That's kind of cool. Inside, it's free to enter. You can go and walk around the sanctuary. It also has the largest organ in Iceland. And if you're interested, you should also head up to the bell tower. Now, this does cost $10 per person, but you can climb up into the bell tower and it's got a great view of Reykjavik. I mean, this building just towers over everything else. So you can look out, you can see the water, all of those colorful houses I was talking about. Off in the distance, you can see the Rainbow Street, which we'll talk about in a second. Like, it's got a great view, and every few minutes, the bells go off. So that is absolutely deafening. Definitely cover your ears. But it's also really cool to see the bells working right above you and just to hear them playing their little tune that close. So that is definitely a fun experience. Third, you should walk down the Rainbow Street. Now, I'm not even going to attempt to say its official name. I'm just going to put it down here so we don't drastically offend anyone. But this is a fun little area. If you leave the Halmskirkja church and just walk straight down, you will eventually reach the Rainbow Road here. It's got a great view of the church off in the distance, and there's just a lot of fun little shops here. It's also just a great photo opportunity. This area is just kind of fun, so definitely check that out. Once again, that is free, and it'll probably take about 10 minutes to walk there from the church. Number 4, go visit the Reykjavik Zoo. This was actually one of my favorite things to do. I just love animals to begin with, but I really enjoyed this little zoo. It's only $12 or $13 per person to get in, and they have animals that are native to Iceland. Now, for the most part, that is farm animals, but they had so many cute babies, little baby sheep and goats, and they were so cute. So for me, 100% worth it. But for those of you who are like, that sounds boring, they also have reindeer, minks, Arctic foxes, the Icelandic horses. They have a gerfalcon, which is the official bird of Iceland. That was actually really interesting. They have her in a big aviary, and we actually got to attend a private feeding because we kind of had the place to ourselves. And so the worker was telling us all about her history, why she was there, she was injured, and how they have her going through rehab every week. And so that was really interesting just to kind of get that personal touch and just hear how they're taking care of her. They also have some harbor seals, which are so cute. And I was also shocked at how close you can get to them. There's, I'm used to like the Virginia Aquarium where there's this 15-foot glass wall and you see them there. I could have reached out and pet these guys if I wanted to, which I didn't because I was responsible. But they were so cute and happy. They were just doing their thing. We went back to visit them like 2 or 3 times because they were so cute. So I highly recommend this zoo, especially for the price. It's a great way to spend a couple hours during the warmer months, from what I understand. They also have like an amusement park. And so we went down into that area to check it out. Everything was closed for the winter, but they have a number of different rides and things you can do. I'm not sure if the price goes a little higher when that's open, but that looked like it would have been absolutely fantastic to check out too. So be sure that the Reykjavik Zoo is on your list. Next up, number 5 is the Aurora Reykjavik. Now, this is basically a Northern Lights museum, and whether or not you're going on a Northern Lights tour, if you're at all interested in the science behind them, I think this is a great stop. It is a little pricier at $24 per person, but there's a lot of information, interactive elements, and it comes with an audio guide as well and a VR experience. So you're just getting a lot of bang for your buck here. There's a section that talks about how different cultures interpreted the Northern Lights through the centuries. There's information on the first people to study the Northern Lights and try to figure out what caused them. There is a lot of information on what causes the Northern Lights, the different colors, the best conditions, sun flares, all of that. There's a room where they just have beautiful Northern Lights scenes from across Iceland playing on this big screen. There's seats in the back, and then for the kids, they have little like cots and pillows and things down in the front where they can just lay down and watch this cool display. There's a section that tells you how to prep your camera to take the best pictures, what kind of weather conditions to look for, and even a little green screen where they'll take your picture and put the northern lights in the background behind you. And then, like I said, it finishes up with a VR experience. It's pretty short, but that was really cool just to be surrounded by epic displays of northern lights. So it is a pretty extensive thing. It's locally run. I thought it was super fun. We had a great time there and we learned so much in advance of our Northern Lights tour. And especially since our actual Northern Lights experience was a little bit disappointing, this was a really cool experience to at least pretend that we got to see all these cool lights in person. We got to see some great shots, and they did make it feel like you were actually there. So that was just a lot of fun. Number 6 is for all of my volcano fanatics, and it's the Lava Show. Now, this is a one-of-a-kind show that you will only find in Reykjavik and Vik. It's the same company, they have 2 locations, and it's really cool. This is by far the most expensive thing on my list at $42 per person. We weren't originally planning to do this, but I'm really glad we did. It's a 1-hour show, and it starts with a presentation about volcanoes in Iceland. You get to see this very interesting history of volcanic activity here. And then they do a presentation with real hot lava. They collected lava rocks from a previous eruption and they remelt it for each show so you can see this hot lava in action. The majority of the presentation is a talk about this lava. So they have a worker there and she's got this long stick and she'll keep poking at the lava so you can see how the consistency changes and you will actually watch it cool down right in front of your eyes. They keep checking the temperature so you can see at what temperatures it turns different colors. And I really enjoyed the part where she cracked open the bottom and you could see how it had this hard outer crust that was really thick and had all these air pockets, but underneath there was still this super hot lava. And that's why you have to be so careful about driving or walking on the lava after an eruption because it can stay hot for months after the eruptions ended because it gets insulated in there and there's still actual lava underneath, but the top looks like it's hard. So that's just very interesting. You can get more pricey tickets with souvenirs and better seats and such. We got like the second level that came with a souvenir lava rock. And again, that was just really fun, well worth the hour, and we made some fun memories there. Another fun and free activity is exploring Ler Street. This is the main shopping street in Reykjavik, and we had so much fun. We actually went up and down the street a few times because it did connect a number of the things we were walking to, but it is a great place to shop for souvenirs. There are some delicious cafes in the area, and there's so much street art. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know I love street art, and they just had so much along this area, and it was all so beautifully done. Like, they were really gorgeous subjects. Some of them were really intricate, and so I had a lot of fun just trying to spy all those different ones. But this whole area is just cute. The shops are really nice, and this is just a great place to kill some time and just kind of see what life is like in Reykjavik. There are a lot of tourists here, but you'll also see a lot of shops for locals and such as well, so you can kind of get a good mix of both in this area. When you start feeling a little snacky, you should definitely try Iceland's version of hot dogs, which is called Píslar. Now, these are definitely higher quality than a lot of what we have here. They have beef, lamb, and pork. They're very tasty. They have some specific toppings that they put on them. I recommend you try these with everything on them because they were delicious. They were so good, and this is actually one of the cheaper meals you can get in Iceland. They only cost about $5 per pizza, and so that's pretty cost effective compared to what you're gonna pay in other places. Now, you can get these hot dogs from a couple different places, but the most popular one is called Tojrins Betsu Piesler. This is a very famous hot dog stand in downtown Reykjavik. There's also an alternate location down Ler Street. There's actually one in a convenience store. If you don't want to go all the way to the official stand, you can get one from the secondary location as well, but those are pretty tasty. We ended up getting them a couple different times. There's a few different versions of them you can get, so that's definitely a fun experience. When it's time for dessert, head over to the Nam chocolate shop for some delicious chocolate and ice cream creations. This is right next to the lava show, and we had such a great time looking at all the different types of chocolate and their cool sundaes. They're delicious, but they're also these really cool works of art. I got one that looked like a swan with mango passion sauce, a chocolate passion macaroon, and waffle wings. And there was one that looked like an octopus with licorice chocolate sauce, licorice raspberry nuggets, and extra sour raspberry gummies. People in front of us got that one, and I didn't want to try it, but it looked really cool. And so that's just a really fun little stop. I would highly recommend that if you're looking for something to curb your sweet tooth. And last but not least, you should check out Reykjavik's hot spring scene. There are a number of public thermal swimming pools in town that you can check out. There's actually a city pass that you can get that gives you access to any of the hot springs in town that you like, plus some museums and the zoo. That's about $35 per person. Or if you want something a little more elevated and maybe you don't want to just go hopping from hot spring to hot spring because that does take time, I recommend checking out the Sky Lagoon just outside of town. It's like a 10-minute drive from the center of Reykjavik, and it is so beautiful. I just did a video on this the other week. It is a great spot to relax. Tickets are a little pricier than you would pay for just a normal hot spring in town. Those start around $10 per adult, whereas the Sky Lagoon starts around $50 per person, but it's a much more involved experience, especially if you get one of their packages with the 7-step ritual. That's a lot of fun, not to mention it has an oceanfront infinity pool, the largest single window in Iceland in their sauna that looks out over the ocean, waterfall features. It's just a beautiful setting. So if you want to check out the hot springs and don't want to go in town, definitely recommend checking out the Sky Lagoon. And again, you can get a lot more information about that in the YouTube video I just did and my blog post on cochranewriting.com. Now, to wrap things up, I just want to touch real quick on transportation around Reykjavik. So we visited without a car because we were there with a bigger tour, and most of our transportation was taken care of on a tour bus. But if you're trying to figure out the best way to get around, I just wanted to let you know what your options are. So first of all, driving in Iceland should not be very difficult. They drive on the right-hand side of the road. Most of the signs and the traffic lights and everything are going to be very familiar to what you would deal with in America if you're coming from America. Very universal. However, the streets in Reykjavik it's just city driving. That can always be a little tense. There are a decent number of roundabouts and things like that. So if you want to drive, you can. You just have to deal with street parking. If you don't want to drive, the city is very walkable. For the most part, we walked everywhere, and we enjoyed that because it gave us a chance to see more of the city up close than you would from a car. So we liked the walks. There were occasions where we were kind of hustling a little bit because we needed to be somewhere at a certain time, but for the most part, we just enjoyed strolling around, seeing the colorful houses, being able to just pop into a cafe if we felt like it. If you don't want to walk, there is also a pretty extensive public bus system. The only downside is in order to buy tickets, you either have to have exact change or you have to use the Hopit app, and it literally has like a 1.4 star rating. It is not great, but it gets the job done. I wasn't really able to save an account. I just kind of had to have it pulled up, but it did save my credit card information. I was able to buy tickets whenever we needed them without trouble. There was a little bit of a learning curve, but eventually we figured out how to get from one stop to the other, how to get the tickets at the right station, and things like that. So it's really not tricky after like the first time. It does cost about $4.50 per trip, no matter how far you're going. So if you're going across town, that's a really good deal. But if it is within walking distance, you may want to walk to save the money. For us, that meant $9 every trip. So we only took it about 4 times. The other problem with this was sometimes the buses run a little late, which wouldn't be a big problem. But for example, we were trying to get from our hotel to the lava show, which started at 6. And I believe the bus we had to take, there's only one option, was 20 minutes late. Like, that's pretty bad. And so we were late to our show because we weren't sure what other option to take. Now, we almost took the scooters. They do have a pretty extensive scooter ride sharing service throughout town, which you just download the app and then you put in your credit card information and you check out a scooter and you pay for how long you use it for. So we didn't actually end up using that. Our bus came right as we were about to start our scooter adventure. But that is an option if you're comfortable with that. I wasn't super confident in my balance, so we did not take the scooters just because I was so scared of wiping out. But if that's something you're comfortable with, I think that would be a lot of fun and faster than walking, but also still allows some of that flexibility. The last thing I want to say here is don't spend too much time in Reykjavik. Like, these are great things to do, but don't plan your trip around being in the city. The best parts of Iceland are out in the countryside. The cliffs, the glaciers, the black sand beaches, the waterfalls, all of those are outside of the city. So as much fun as Reykjavik is, I would not recommend spending more than 1, maybe 2 days here, depending on how long you have. Now, if you're basing yourself out of Reykjavik, you can fit in a few more of these things in the evening, but you are also setting yourself up for some really long drives, which will be beautiful. But I think the smarter decision is to maybe spend a day here, then drive out and stay in other towns and villages around the country as you explore, just to be in a more convenient location. Our very first day of our tour was a free day in Reykjavik, and we managed to do the Halmskirkja church. We tried the Píslar, we went to the Rainbow Road, we did the zoo, we did the Aurora Reykjavik, and we walked down a decent bit of Ler Street. So we did a lot of that list in just one day, and if we hadn't been absolutely exhausted from our red-eye flight, we probably could have fit in a couple more things. So don't feel like you have to spend a lot of time here. In fact, I would encourage you to just pick a day's worth of activities and then go out and see the rest of the stuff that this beautiful country has to offer. All right, and that wraps up my video on 10 top things to do in Reykjavik, Iceland. Now, these are not the only things to do in town. There are other attractions you can check out. There's a number of museums and art galleries, but if you're looking for things that are a little different and unique to Reykjavik, these are what I would recommend. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop those below. I love to hear from you all, and I hope that this was helpful for you. If you want to read a little bit more about each of these places, I do have a full written blog post on my website, www.cochranewriting.com, at the Carried Away Travels blog. I would also encourage you to check out some of my other videos and blog posts about Iceland, and then be sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned, because I'm going to be sharing a lot more information in the upcoming weeks about things to do all over Iceland's west coast. We visited some of the most popular spots, so you're definitely going to want to see those if you have any interest in visiting Iceland. Thank you so much for being here, and I wish you many happy travels.